Hi, my name is Zhiqian Zhang. I'm in section A09. I'm an international female student from China. Coming from China, a country with a complex history of territorial disputes and identity struggles, I have become increasingly aware of how land history and belonging intersect in the context of colonialism and nationalism. This is how I can better engage in class discussions. I choose the content from week 8, week 9 as the references for my final video. In class, we talk about how belonging is often connected to land, but it's not just about owning a specific place. Anzadu is borderlands mentioned borderlands not just physical borders, but as spaces where identities and cultures overlap. This idea of landless belonging shows that belonging can come from culture and personal history, not just a specific land. It's more about fluid identities that cross borders. We also discussed how contested territories are about more than just space. In a different mirror, Mike Kinling talks about how people are displaced from their ancestral lands and how the fight for land is really a fight for recognition and respect of their culture and history. Lastly, Anzadu's concept of in between shows that even when people lose their physical homeland, they can still belong to cultural spaces that are global or transitional. Oh, sorry. This idea challenges the belief that belonging is only tied to land or national boundaries. I believe these ideas highlight that belonging isn't tied to a specific land. Anzado's concept of borderlands shows that belonging can come from culture and identity, not just geography. Similarly, Mackling in a different mirror shows that the flight overland is really about the recognition of culture and history, and the Anzado's idea of in-betweenness further challenges the belief that belonging is tied to a homeland, suggesting that even without a physical homeland, people can belong to global or transitional cultural spaces. It's about identity and connections, not just land. My aha moment came from a class discussion. The discussion made me realize how complex identity and belonging are for marginalized groups, especially when they are displaced or denied access to the land that historically defined their cultural and social existence. The idea that land is central to identity, but that people who are landless or dispossessed still carve out meaningful ways of belonging really resonated with me. It gave me a deeper understanding of how contested spaces shape personal and collective identity. Next, I will give two examples of countries that have experienced landless belonging, which we discussed in class. That is Australia and New Zealand. The first example is Australia. In 1788, the British arrived in Sydney and declared the land territory. This justified the seizure of land from indigenous people and the establishment of missions and reserves. Indigenous Australians were pushed out of their land, creating a landless belonging, as their connection to the land was ignored and replaced with settler control. The second example is New Zealand. The Treaty of Waitangi was meant to protect Maoriland rights, but over time it was violated, and the Native Land Act led to the confiscation of Maori lands. This formalized the loss of territory for the Maori people, leaving them with a landless belonging, unable to maintain their traditional ways of life on their own lands. I think in both examples, settler colonialism created contested territories where indigenous people lost their land and their sense of belonging was seriously disrupted. The second part is the theme of week 9 is incarceration and rightlessness. This concept matters because it reveals how systems of operation adapt and persist. Even after legal reforms, while slavery was officially abolished, The 16th Amendment's exception clause created a loophole that allowed exploitation to continue under the guise of incarceration. Understanding this helps us see how structural inequalities are deeply embedded in institutions like the justice system. After recording this passage, I realized that after reading this passage, I realized that the 16th Amendment didn't completely abolish slavery. It left a loophole that allows forced labor as punishment for the crime. This explains how systems like mass incarceration and convict leasing could emerge, especially targeting marginalized communities. It's not just about abolishing slavery. It's about how the system was restructured to perpetuate exploitation in a legal way. Okay, let's continue to the third part, personal impact reflection. I think the topic that impacted me the most was labor and race-based nationalism. Learning about how labor systems and racial hierarchies are deeply intertwined made me rethink about systematic inequalities are built into societal structures. In my life, it has sparked my interest in issues I was previously interested to, such as immigration rights, racial and economic inequality. It has also led me to think about how advocating for social justice can help reduce racial bias and exploitation within the global economic system. Okay, so that's my final video. Thank you so much.